Hello, my name is Liam Ellis, and I am joined by my teammate Campbell, and we are very excited to share our analysis of the Toshiba case, which is a clear demonstration of failed corporate governance. So this leads us into the core problem that we identified within this case, which is that Toshiba's management team showed a blatant disregard for the rights and interests of its shareholders, and this is most obvious in regards to its foreign shareholders. And the key issues and considerations that branch off of this core problem are that Toshiba's actions go against Japan's new corporate governance code, and that Toshiba and METI's actions may deter future foreign investment into the Japanese markets. And finally, METI enabled Toshiba's actions and later did not take accountability for these issues, which is something that we will also be touching on in our analysis. With so much of this case revolving around the rights of foreign shareholders in Japanese companies, we felt it was important to analyze the new corporate governance code that the Japanese government had implemented. So this code had come to be after the government realized that the value of Japanese companies had gradually been declining. So they felt it was necessary to attract more foreign investment into these corporations, which is why they created this code to give these investors the confidence in knowing that their rights will be protected. So this is demonstrated in General Principle 1 here, which basically outlines that the issues and concerns of foreign shareholders must be considered by these corporations. The next piece of analysis we looked at was Toshiba's high levels of foreign ownership. So after a series of scandals and poor corporate governance decisions, such as purchasing companies at inflated prices that then went bankrupt, Toshiba decided that they needed more capital, which they were going to attract through increasing the amount of foreign ownership they have in the company. So they issued 600 billion yen in new shares, with most of this going to foreign investors, which meant that pretty much overnight, the level of foreign ownership in Toshiba went from 38% to 72%, which now meant that foreign investors owned the majority of the company. And this can be seen in the table below, which outlines some of the large firms that owned high levels of ownership in Toshiba. And these firms were from Singapore and the United States and Hong Kong. So with such high levels of foreign ownership in Toshiba, it's pretty crucial that Toshiba's board and management team adopt a culture of transparency and that they respect the rights and interests of these foreign owners. However, it's pretty apparent that this did not happen, which is something that we are going to address when we answer question 1 later on in this presentation. However, this did play into our analysis, which led to our recommendation. The final piece of analysis we conducted was looking into the role of the Ministry of Economic Trade and Industry, or METI. So in this case, METI played a pretty large role as they enabled Toshiba to violate the rights of these foreign shareholders. METI influenced some of the foreign shareholders and convinced them not to vote or swayed their vote, which is clearly outside of their mandate, given that their role is to advance Japan's economy and improve its external economic relationships. However, in our perspective, its actions in influencing these shareholders was contradictory of its role, and it actually harmed Japan and Toshiba in the long run, which is something that we're going to look into more in question 3 when we answer that later on. So this leads us to our recommendations. At the end of the case, it is stated that 2 members of the management team and 2 of the directors on the board are going to resign. We do not feel that this is a big enough change, and our first recommendation is to replace the chairman of the board as well as some of the members on the management team. While the current chairman may feel that he is the right person to make changes within the company. We feel that a drastic change to the company's culture is needed to become more accommodating of its foreign ownership, and that a new chairman and a new set of management team members is what will really change the optics on this situation and continue to attract foreign investors. The graph shown on the left side of this slide is taken directly from the Toshiba website, and it shows the corporate governance structure of the company, and it shows how the board of directors can be appointed and dismissed, which will outline how this recommendation can be implemented. Our second recommendation is for the government of Japan to make METI face accountability for their involvement within this scandal. At the end of the case, METI had stated that they feel that they had done nothing wrong, which is contrary to our belief. And we feel that if Japan wishes to continue to attract foreign investors, that they need to ensure that they can show investors that they will not have government agencies interfering with the rights of these foreign investors.
For question 2, we looked into what the activist investors did actually want Toshiba to do. We identified 4 key points here. The first being that activist investors demanded improved financial performance along with more transparency, as both have been lacking for a significant amount of time, resulting in much frustration for foreign investors. Second, following the involvement of METI in 2021, shareholders demanded fair and equal voting rights for decisions being made. This involved increasing transparency both financially as well as for governance practices, as well as removing the external pressures such as government agencies like METI. Third, we have activist investors requested restructuring of the board of directors as it was determined that they were too aligned with management to offer a fair external opinion on the direction of the company. Finally, in the case of, as previously mentioned, 3D, an investor of Toshiba, they suggested that the company divest their non-core business activities as it was resulting in hindered financial performance. This suggestion was ignored by Toshiba. For the third question, we were asked if we believed it was inappropriate for METI to become involved in the discussions of Toshiba's future and shareholder interests. Our response to this was yes. We do believe that it was inappropriate for METI to become involved with Toshiba regarding these, their future and shareholder interests. This is because METI was actually used to pressure investors by swaying votes and limiting foreign investors' ability to push for reforms or privatization, which they had pushed for, but the company did not approve of. This is a problem because shareholders such as foreign investors have a legal right to participate in corporate decision-making. METI's actions undermine the principle of fairness, transparency, and equal treatment of shareholders, which are core to good corporate governance practices. For the final question for this case, we were asked whether or not it appears that Japan and Toshiba's movement toward improved corporate governance practices would be successful. Ultimately, we answered that at the time of this case, we believe that Toshiba and Japan's movement towards improved corporate governance would not be successful given its current state. That being said, there may be some cautious optimism, assuming that our recommendations given are followed. The highlighting of Toshiba's issues from 2015 to 2021 is vital to bring awareness to the effects of poor corporate governance. Toshiba may be even used as an example for other companies that are considering the same tactics. For Toshiba themselves, significant changes will need to be made to restore effective corporate governance practices and preserve the company itself, which is demonstrated in our recommendations. As demonstrated, this case shows the importance of competent corporate governance, which was not the case for Toshiba. We thank you for listening.